Howdy, folks. Happy Monday. We are back to the NHL schedule. The All-Star break is over with, the bye week. I think, what was it, like half the teams had a bye week last week and have it this week. So it's a limited schedule, but at least everybody's back. So we'll have some games to talk. We'll talk about some of the games tonight. Some of the teams entering the break or entering the season after the break and where they are. We talked about the Western Conference in depth last on Friday. We'll maybe concentrate on the East here, but let's start with the pre-show stuff.
All right. So I noticed yesterday that Jerry Eisenberg is going to go to his 53rd consecutive Super Bowl, which I think is a record. And we all kind of grew up with Jerry Eisenberg in the New York metro area. He would be on television. He would be, I think the Newark Star-Ledger was his paper, I think. And just a very, famous, good writer that could write about a lot of things. It's sort of nice that he's keeping this going. He even said, look, I'm an old guy, but I'm going to the game.
No, I think I mentioned over the phone, Larry Felser, who covered the Bills in the AFL days, but he went to, and he passed away, I think about a decade ago, but up until his retirement, he went to every Super Bowl. And then I'm for some reason, I believe that after he retired, he had some health issues. So he didn't, so, but yeah, no, that's, I mean, it's a unique story. I mean, to be at every one, to be at the Kansas City, Green Bay, and was it 67, I believe.
67.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's something. It really is something.
It is something. And also, happy anniversary to all the Bills fans out there.
Yes, Russ being the major league troll that he is. I actually brought it up on the radio because I did some. I had to, obviously, because of the news on the weekend. Look, all the things that happened. We're not going to go into it today because it's had a ton of coverage. Right. But they brought me in, and when Russ gleefully sent me the message that today was the 29th anniversary of Wide Right. I had to bring it up as a bit of news because we didn't really realize that was the day. All I know about, all I will remember until my dying day is not Norwood missing the field goal. It was the fact that I was listening. I was at my brother's business. He owns an electronics business in Buffalo, and he had a projection television. So we were watching it on the big screen, but listening to Van Miller, who was the longtime Bills broadcaster, listening to the radio broadcast, because I can't remember whether it was Al Michaels or who was doing the game at that point. But we just want to listen to the local broadcast. And, even to the end, even after, O.J. Anderson runs basically for the entire third quarter, and Mark Ingram makes 3rd and 18 and all these things, you still thought the Bills were going to win and they drive down the field, and Norwood, I knew it was out of his range. He was a 40 to in kicker, and this was 47 on natural grass. But I'm sitting on the stairwell listening to Van Miller, knowing Norwood's going to miss. And then hoping that I'm wrong, but knowing he's going to miss. And he did.
Yeah, I was at a party in New York with a bunch of Giants fans, so clearly we were not upset.
Yeah, the obnoxious jerks that they are.
No, these are nice people, Mike.
No, Giant fans in general.
Oh, okay. I do want to also talk about the Green Day situation with the NFL, because I don't think people like Keith Olbermann and other people that were in that business get it. When a league hires someone like Green Day to like a multi-year deal, they're doing it because they know they have some new music on the horizon. They have a ton of fans, and it's obviously a demographic that they're very interested in. If Green Day cleared the list with the NHL for the show, which I'm sure they did, 99% of Green Day songs have curses in them. Like, it's almost impossible to get around that. If you expected Billy Joe to play without the cursing, it was never going to happen. You were going to have to dump it, and they had a dump button. So I don't see what the big deal is here. If you're going to hide and say, well, it's a family event and inside the building, it's like, you know what? Every concert, every comedian, your kids are exposed to a lot of that. I'm not saying they should be exposed to it every day, but this is a situation that is normal and at this point, predictable. And so I was not shocked. I don't think Billy Joe cursed extra because he was being censored, because what he did was standard to what he does in concert. Like I've seen enough concerts to know.
Yeah, I mean, and as I said to you yesterday, if some people had problems with Green Day, other people had problems with Kid Rock.
Right.
And other people had problems with Snoop Dogg at the NBA All-Star game. And, it's like, or Janet Jackson at the Super Bowl or whatever. I mean, there's always somebody who has a problem. And it's like, if the NHL didn't read the lyrics of the Green Day songs, then it's on them, because honestly,
American Idiot's like a massive hit. It's been out for a million years now. Like,
Right. So, I mean, honestly, to me, it's sort of much ado about nothing, because you sign off on that. Okay, so now you have the dump button, and if he drops the F-bomb,
right,
you block it out. I mean, you can't exactly block out Kid Rock's stupidity. And I'm not I'm not a monstrous Green Day fan, but they're a good band. I can't stand Kid Rock, so I don't understand that. They're not going to have the people that I want to be part of the show. But again, it's like, if you're going to be all flustered about Green Day dropping a swear word here or there, get a life, really.
I know. It's like when I kept seeing that online, well, they're never going to have them back. I'm like, we'll see.
Okay. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Monday, January 27th, 2020.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. Okay, we're not going to waste a lot of time with the All-Star game per se, because, frankly, I did not watch it. I kept my promise. I saw, I think, about 2 minutes of it over my shoulder as I was having dinner on Saturday night. I'm glad the people who enjoyed it. God bless. Not for me. I just want to touch briefly on the skills competition with Matthew Barzal winning the fastest skater by milliseconds over Connor McDavid. I immediately cracked that I'm sure that's welcome news to Lou Lamoriello, because now whoever Barzal's agent is probably going to ask for more than Connor McDavid. But I mean, it is a feat. I mean, McDavid, is this a sign that McDavid is slowing down after the injury from last year? I mean, we saw reports, Russ, that he didn't that he took a different path than most people wanted him to, or thought that he should, in regards to rehabilitating his injury. I'm sure he's nobody notices the difference in terms of his speed, because he's still blowing by people.
Right.
But I mean, McDavid he's not getting up there in age, obviously. He's 23, I believe. Mm-hmm. But 22 or 23 years old. But I mean, you lose a stride here or there.
Well, he's had an injury, and we don't know post-injury if that changed his skating just slightly.
Right.
And maybe in a year he'll be faster. Like, he is still recovering from that.
Sure.
So I looked at it, and there were a few things I took out of it. First one was, I did put up a Twitter poll. Are you taking Connor McDavid or the field? I voted for the field, and 75% voted for Connor McDavid. So all those suckers, you lost. That's the first thing.
Okay.
The other interesting thing was, I think he got up to like a top speed of 25 miles an hour. And again, I don't understand why they never mentioned Bobby Hull, who was clocked at 29.7. If you want to say, hey, Jugs guns were new then, and maybe it's a little off, that's fine, but it's 29.7. I get it wasn't done in an all-star game, but technically that's the record to me. Mm-hmm. And so nobody came close to that. Barzal is a great skater, always was in juniors, and now that he's a little stronger, his stride is just fantastic. So you could see that he was doing great. Kreider probably surprised a few, not me, because I always knew he was a great skater, and he's got a powerful stride. He doesn't take the turns as well as McDavid and Barzal, and that's really the issue with Kreider. But that was exciting. As expected, the women's 3-on-3 was the best game. They may not have been high scoring, but I really thought the high quality chances were there, and the passion that didn't exist in the NHL part of the game existed in the women's game.
Yeah. And ironically, it brought about there was a little bit of off the ice situation. Apparently, Cassie Campbell Pascal, who I've only met a couple times, but really good person who's a commentator for Sportsnet.
Yeah.
She and on Sportsnet had made some insinuations regarding the NWHL regarding them players being liable for certain investments that investors had made in the league, and the NWHL had to come out and essentially call her a liar and said that her statements were illogical, and that basically since she is a former board member of the rival CWHL, that she's doing everything that she possibly can to undercut the NWHL. So this war is still going on.
But it really isn't. I mean, the NWHL won the war. Mm-hmm. And the other point is, when everybody decided to, not everybody, but some people decided to jump on Twitter and say, well, when the NHL decides they're going to buy a league or start a league, who says they are? Bettman's staying far, far away from that. He commented on it, and he's nowhere near ready to do it. And get this, and everybody expects, like, well, when a rich guy comes in and bankrolls it, it'll all be great. And it's like, they have people for the NWHL now. They have the right investor. They do have a money guy who is building the league. It's not going to blossom overnight like that. It's not going to all of a sudden turn into 30 teams overnight. But he's a venture capitalist. They got a new team this year. They'll probably get another new team next year. They're splitting the ad revenue with the players now, which is something they didn't do to boost their salaries. So you could say whatever you want about the PWHPA, who hasn't started playing yet. They just have these gap tours. And the people that are playing on those gap tours have made plenty of money. So it's not incumbent upon them to really have to receive money right away. Mm-hmm. Where a lot of people went back to the NWHL, like I said they would, because they are still paying. And so end of the day, they have won the war. And everybody who was just expecting the NWHL to go out and for Bettman to just sort of jump in here and buy a league, it's not happening as quick as you think, folks.
Yeah, I mean, Bada Bing in the chat says we need a WNHL. Well, honestly, no, you don't, because, and this is the thing, until the NWHL collapses, the NHL is not going to step in, and the NWHL may not collapse.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to right now. I mean, it's not showing any signs.
Right. So, I mean, honestly, if this is a battle of wills, Russ is right. The NWHL won, and right now it's just a case of a block of players who don't want to see that league win. I'd be lying if I said I knew all the ins and outs.
No, and I don't know every in and out either
of the struggle, but I don't see why, there's this vehement battle against like these players going to the NWHL unless they just don't want the league. They want a sponsored league through the NHL. They think that's the best course of action, and they think that this other league is going to die. I don't think it's going to die. And if they're getting investors, then it's not going to die anytime soon.
No, it really isn't. Getting back to skills competitions.
Yeah.
So we saw the hardest shot was like a 105 point something, Shea Weber, and no shock. I mean, we saw that he was in better shape this year, a little bit lighter, and he was great. What got little coverage yesterday was Martin Ferk's 109.5 in the AHL.
Right.
And again, we've talked about Martin Ferk. It's a shame because if he played a little defense, this guy has great hands. He did going into the draft. He was a former Red Wing. But yeah, 109 point. I think it was definitely 109. I don't know if it was a point, whatever, but
right.
Yeah, just 109. I mean,
or something like that.
Yeah. But again, I do want to go back to Bobby Hull, who was clocked at 118.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was that driving while intoxicated?
No, that was his shooting speed, Mike.
I'm just kidding.
I know.
No, okay.
118.3. So again, if you want to say, hey, the Jugs guns weren't what they were, but he was also using a wooden stick, that should still be looked at as the high mark.
Well, didn't I hear like Al McInnes had shot like with a wooden stick and he shot over 100 miles an hour or something?
Wooden stick, 100.4. And of course, these super sleuths on Twitter are thinking, well, he didn't do that. They rigged it. That's not right. And it's like, hold on. He won it 7 times in a row. He is only 56 years old. And from a 56-year-old guy that still can get out there and do a little bit, imagine what a guy like Al McInnes can do if he practices for a week and he just has to shoot the puck. He did it. That was real, folks. That's
now, I have not heard an explanation, and I really don't. I'm not going to dig into the reason why. But in this shoot contest where the players were shooting from off the ice,
yeah, that bored me.
It was pretty boring from what I understand, but it got down to the final 2 of Marner versus Patrick Kane.
Right.
Marner hits the 10-point award, like it was like some sort of tent or something like that. And he hits it and it lights up and they don't give him the 10 points. And then Patrick Kane gets points and he wins. I immediately said,
I have no idea why.
Yeah. I don't know why. And I immediately said after, okay, Gretzky's in the building. So Leaf has got to get screwed. I don't understand why it did. I haven't heard any explanation. It's like,
I don't either. I really think this whole contest came from that time that Shea Weber shot the puck, I forgot what rink it was in, from like the upper deck, and he got it in the net after a certain amount of tries. And I feel like that's where this was born. I think this came from the McDonald's commercial, from the Jordan versus Larry Bird, like off the wall type of thing. That could have been the start of it, but Weber did it and YouTubed it, and that was about 6 years ago, because I remember asking him about it at an All-Star game. But end of the day, even the shooting of the targets, we missed the targets. I don't like the new high-tech way they're doing it. Yeah. And then the glass broke. I knew the glass broke too. That was bad. So there's some refinements, but next year's I think will be good. Well, I'll give them credit for one thing. They did not wear out the goal. The goalies, all they participated in was the shot streak. And I mean, these goalies are getting worn out with the 3-on-3 and going post to post and everything. The last thing they need is to be used in other situations. Right. And they, other than the shot streak, that was the only thing that they really participated in. And that was good because, I mean, again, you can go back to Mike Richter in the, what was that like? It was like the most shots competition or something. And he made like 40 or 50 saves like in a span of 5 seconds, and he tore his ACL. Yeah. So, okay. Again, not talking about. I want to say this though. One last thing. Go ahead. The big rumor now is for next year, it will be USA versus Canada. I will go to that game and cover it if it's USA versus Canada. I think that would. You're going to go to the game because it's in Florida in January. I am going to go to that game if it's US versus Canada. Shut up, Mike. Well, wait. Is it going to be US versus Canada versus Europe? Maybe. Maybe that's what they're going to do. Well, yeah. But if they do that, I'll be in for that. I'm sure Ovechkin will go next year because it's in Sunrise. Anyway, okay, I have to bring this up because it sort of echoes my point of view in partially. I am not a big proponent of the NHL breaking in February for the Olympics in 2022 unless they get concessions that make it worth their while. And Ken Campbell from the Hockey News tweeted out and linked an article of his saying the NHL says it's extraordinarily disruptive to shut the league down for 2 weeks every 4 years for the Olympics, but has no problem having bye weeks and shutting down for 4 days each season to give us a terrible product that is broken and unfixable. And then he wrote, I think that's wrong. Now, okay, I agree that I have come to peace with the fact that the All-Star game is not for me. I won't. I just will not watch it. I won't go to it unless I get free trip to Florida. But I'm not going to watch it because it's not for me, and I think it's a waste of time. But some, kids love it. They want to watch I watched a little of the skills competition. That was fine, but the game is a waste of time for me. So the bye week was a contractual negotiation between the PA and the NHL. So both sides were on board for that. The thing is, honestly, I don't know whether there's a good positive for the Olympics. And of course, our good buddy Alan Walsh has to respond
says, Ken is right. With regard to the Olympics, Bettman has privately indicated to those around him he's okay with the players going as long as the NHLPA gives up some big concession for it in the collective bargaining agreement. The whole extraordinary disruptive argument is BS. Well, if we're looking for an expert on BS, that's Alan Walsh. So there you go. Right. But honestly, what do you think that they're using this for? Of course, I've been saying for 3 years, Russ, that they're using participation in the Olympics as a negotiating point in the CBA, but they also are using it because they want concessions from the IOC.
They're going to know soon, but here's the thing: we have to look at this and say, how popular are the Olympics anymore? Anyhow, you have to admit, in the last 30 years, it has faded in popularity. The ratings aren't what they are. There was a boost when HD came out, and then everybody got tired of it again. When there were true amateurs in this country, which there are very few now, it mattered more, and there weren't as many professional leagues. Now it's just like, other than you being able to razz your friend in Canada when the U.S. plays Canada, I mean, we're just seeing the same players recycled. We're only seeing maybe a couple of new ones. You know, once in a while you get your Zuccarellos, guys like that get filtered in. But you're not seeing that much new. At least in the old days, you were seeing like guys like Trejak, that whole team. None of them were in the NHL. It gave more intrigue. So at the end of the day, if people want to scream about this, what are you really missing? Seriously.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, we know that it's going to be 2 years away. But with what's going on right now with the coronavirus in China, I have a friend in China that, you know, there are people walking around with medical masks.
Yeah.
You know, because, and don't say that that's not going to happen. It could very well, something else could happen in a couple of years. So I think the NHL would be on board if the Olympics is in North America, like it was in Vancouver, like it was in Salt Lake, maybe even in Europe. But when it's in Southeast Asia or in Korea, in China, and you're starting games at 10 o'clock at night, it's just, I mean, they don't even get a chance to use the highlights in their highlight. I mean, how many times have people seen the golden goal?
Right.
The Crosby goal in 2010. I don't particularly want to see it because I was rooting for the U.S.
Right, but you don't see it a lot.
Yeah, you don't see it a lot at all, and that is a friggin' shame. And I don't know. I mean, Mark in the chat was saying send the juniors to the Olympics. Okay, but the World Junior, then what they have to do then?
Yeah, they can't do that. It's again.
What they have to do then, Russ, is to shut the World Junior down that year.
Yeah, they're not going to do that.
Right.
They're going to just send guys that are unattached NHLers that haven't turned pro yet, that are college players that can get a leave and go. They're going to get those kinds of players, and that's fine. And if you want to watch that, you can watch it. We watched some of it last time. Yep. We just weren't thrilled with it, right? There weren't gripping games or anything, but, you know, as a side to watch, it was fine. But I'm not going to necessarily be 100% in Bettman's corner here, but I'm not going to be upset if they're not in it. I wasn't upset last time.
Yeah. Okay,
what
so
was the time difference again? Do we remember?
Well, for what?
For these Olympics, what would the time difference be?
It was like 13 hours.
Yeah, so
again, like 7 a.m. here is like 6 p.m. there, I think.
Right, so we're going to get 9 in the morning games again.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't know. We'll see.
The other thing that you brought up,
yep.
So back when the SARS thing was going on, I was supposed to go to the Toronto Expo, and everybody kept calling it the SARS Expo, and there were people wearing masks in Canada, and I didn't go.
I went to the SARS concert.
Yeah.
It was at I believe it was at the Rogers Center and Air Canada Center at that point. So, okay, now we're looking toward now the countdown to the trade deadline, which I believe today's the 27th. So I think it's 28 days until the trade deadline, February 24th at, I believe, 3 p.m. Mm-hmm. You asked the question we were going to talk about, and I think it's a good one, is who will make the first trade, the first major trade of this second half, or the what we would consider trade deadline season. And I mean, in my mind, it has to be a team that is no doubt out of it.
Yep.
So that limits it to maybe 7 or 8 teams, and it has to be a player that I think they believe they're getting the best value now. If I had to, I will take a guess and say it would be the LA Kings and Tyler Toffoli, because I think he's got a certain value. I don't think it's going to go up or go down unless a major injury happens in the next 4 weeks.
Right.
So I think the Kings will make that deal, in the next week or so.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think they will make it very quickly. There is no reason to hold off, and as long as they get a good offer. Mine will be the New Jersey Devils and Sami Vatanen.
Right. Same reason.
Same reasons. It's not going to affect their team. They're already bad. Matter of fact, if they get worse, it's okay because they'll get a better draft pick. So I think they'll try and scoop him out there quick. And if you think about it, teams would want to get Vatanen quickly because after that, there's a huge drop-off in what defensemen are available at the deadline. So I don't think they have to wait to the deadline for their best return, where Toffoli, there's not as much of a want. I guarantee you there's 5-6 teams that want Vatanen. So I think if the Devils are smart, they do that. Now, on a side, the Devils now have said they're splitting time between Blackwood and Domingue. If you ask me, because Domingue is a cheap option, they probably will deal him if he looks good, because somebody will take Domingue over Georgiev if they don't want to really give up many assets. You can get Domingue for a song.
Well, and that's the thing, and I mentioned this off the post on Sunday, is the fact that I think that Georgiev, and don't get me wrong, Jeff Gorton, the Rangers general manager, is right to ask what he is asking for Georgiev. But the problem is that he's asking for a return commensurate with a possible number one goaltender. Right. And he is that. He's 23 years old. Yep. He had a great year last year. He's going to play 40 games this year.
There's still an element of risk, though.
There's an element of risk, but he's putting him in the same category as Cam Talbot before him and Antti Raanta, who went on to get like $4 million contracts and be starters for Arizona and for Edmonton. So he's asking for that kind of package. Okay. Now, from what I understand, they don't have to trade him because Shesterkin doesn't have to be protected.
He doesn't have to be protected, but there could be a point where he pushes them and says, "What's going on here?" Or I could go back.
Right. I mean, if that's a problem to have a 40-40 split, but the problem is that next year is a year that you would have to carry 3 goaltenders. Otherwise, Shesterkin would have to potentially go back to could potentially go back to the KHL. I think Georgiev is more of a summer move because teams will be, and believe me, there are enough teams out there that are looking for a potential number one. I mean, I think Edmonton will. I think Buffalo might.
We already talked about it. Like, I think what the Rangers will do is bring back like someone like Brandon Halverson and make him the sacrificial lamb, sign him to a contract, a guy like that.
Well, they have to have a certain amount of games played. So, I mean,
no, but he's already done it. If you think about it, I'll look him up and keep talking.
Yeah, but no, I mean, remember, I know that with the last expansion, it was a certain amount of games played in the 2 years previous to the expansion draft. So that would mean playing Brandon Halverson 10 to 15 games in the NHL. So that's why, that might not work. Now, they have to make a goalie available, so it could be somebody who they trade for who played for another team. So, I mean, that's the quandary that they have. But in terms of the value coming back for Georgiev, they're going to get more in the summer than they are at the deadline because a team like Toronto, who might be interested in Georgiev as a backup, is only willing to trade the price of what a backup would cost, not the price of what a starting goalie would cost.
Right. So,
now I think goalie market wise, you're talking about Domingue because I think his salary is like 1.1. You're talking Ryan Miller because Anaheim, if he waives his no trade, because Ryan Miller, Anaheim's going nowhere. You're talking Jack Campbell. And then after that, you're talking about guys whose salary is in the starter range, and teams might want them as a insurance policy in case their starter is not that good. I mean, Craig Anderson, if he proves he's healthy, could be somebody on the block. I don't think Washington's trading Braden Holtby, but there are expensive goaltenders out there that might be available, but teams are going to be limited because of the cap space.
Yeah, teams will be limited because of the cap space. I don't think there's going to be a ton of them. So here's the interesting thing about Halverson. It looks like he just signed on as a free agent with the Norfolk Admirals, because it doesn't look like the Admirals have any affiliation anymore.
So they're an independent?
I mean, I can't find an affiliation with them anymore.
I mean, they used to be Anaheim, but that was 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah, it says Blackhawks 2000, 2007, Anaheim 2012 to 15, and then Tampa 27 to 2012.
Are they in the ECHL or are they in the AHL?
No, ECHL still.
Okay.
They're going to the AHL, though.
Okay. Well, they were, and then they weren't, and now they are again.
Yeah, well, that's what it says. So, anyhow, you get a guy like Halverson. He's played a couple of NHL games. He's played a lot of minor league games. He's only 23. The interesting thing about it is he is on loan from the Providence Bruins, and he's playing for the Tucson Roadrunners on loan. So he's like the perfect kind of guy if he's filled the criteria. But I'm just saying,
right,
those are the kinds of guys you look for to worry about filling that part of the deal, right? I mean, that's what a good GM does.
A guy like Michael Hutchinson might be valuable not this summer, next summer as somebody who qualifies.
Right, as an example. But you'll see teams will sign these guys over the summer now or next year to 1-year deals, or over the summer to 2-year deals, stick them in the minors so they have them. I fully expect that. But I don't think the goalie market's hot at the moment because there's not a lot of injuries. And even Corey Crawford, who's definitely going to get dealt, he's got salary. He is the most proven.
$6 million.
Yeah, so even if they eat half, right, he is the most proven. But
they can. Chicago can. They have 11 cap space.
But still, for $3 million, are there going to be a lot of suitors for Crawford?
Yeah, and if they stay in the race, they'll probably say we'll have him as an own rental and sign. You know, I know he probably would want to go someplace.
Doesn't it seem like at this point it's a last-minute decision?
Yes, I think it makes more sense for Chicago to want to sign Leonard because Leonard is 7 years younger and having the better year. That being said, Crawford did win 2 Stanley Cups with the Hawks, yeah. And if all they're getting for them is to eat $3 million of salary is a 4th round pick, then what's the point? I mean, could Florida use a veteran backup instead of Chris Dredger behind Bobrovsky? Sure, but do they want to spend $3 million on a backup? Probably not.
No, and that's why I think it'll be a last-minute decision. If there's a last-minute injury, then there could be a couple teams shopping, but I don't think anybody's shopping heavily like we thought in the offseason because I don't think anybody's goaltending has blown up like it did last year, like in a bad way.
Yeah, I mean, the Toronto discussion regarding their goaltending situation. Let's say this: if Frederik Andersen doesn't play any better than he did over the last month, the backup is inconsequential. They're not
right. It won't matter.
Right. Do they, if he plays better and they need an upgrade over Hutchinson and the race comes down to 2 or 3 points, then the need to add a backup makes a lot of sense. And there are ways for them to improve and get a goaltender who's not going to cost them a ton. I still believe the Leafs are going to go after a goaltender, maybe a KHL goalie next summer because they can get him on an entry-level contract and not have to get into a bidding war for a backup goaltender. Okay, let's talk about the East. That I know we started on this on Friday. Start with the bottom and work our way up. Detroit, obviously a seller, and I think we mentioned it's the defenseman, it's Green, it's Daly, maybe a couple of their forwards. The situation with them though is health. Is whether Daly is healthy, whether Green is healthy, and whether Yzerman I would think it makes perfect sense to eat some salary to get something for them and move them out. I
mean, honestly, at this point, Daly, he almost gets hurt the minute he joins another club. I wouldn't give anything but a 7th round pick for him, honestly.
Well, he's getting up there in age, and he's probably at the end of it here, so you're probably right.
And as far as Mike Green, yes, somebody will give something for Mike Green. I don't think it'll be a first. I'm not even sure it'll be a second. It might be a conditional second, like if he plays through the first round of the playoffs, plays a certain amount of games, gets to the Stanley Cup, maybe it's like a third that turns into a second. I could see something like that.
That's like a Chemo Timonen type of deal.
Yes.
I'd be surprised if they get that much, but there is.
No, but they did for Timonen, and Green certainly got about as much left.
Right. Skip over the Devils because I know we talked about them, and we know it's Vatanen, it's maybe Andy Green, maybe Wayne Simmons, although
maybe Palmieri,
but that if they start if they start trading players under term and Tom Fitzgerald is not their general manager, I think that's a mistake. I think they have to hold on to those guys until they decide who the general manager is and let that GM trade those guys or make the decision to keep them.
I agree.
Ottawa, I don't know anybody who's going to want Michael Bodker. He's just been a bust.
Nobody wants Bodker. He gets hurt too much. I mean, I don't think he has much value.
But I'll tell you, I mean, like I see five players here who they could get value for. Nemestikov is one. Actually, 6 players. Nemestikov is one. He's a center. Pajot is another. He's a center. And we know that Pajot probably is in the top 3 of available forwards on this trade market. It's him, it's Toffoli, and it's probably Kreider. We'll talk about Kreider in a minute, but I would think that you're going to see Ottawa maybe wait till very late, hoping that they can get Pajot signed to a contract. But based on the comments that Dorian made last week, I think they're trading him.
No, I think they're trading him too. The other guys they're trading aren't really any great shakes, but Pajot is the guy that can draw some value. But the problem with Ottawa that I feel bad about is you still are going to have a team 75% with young guys. Now, Tkachuk will be a veteran at that point, at least a third-year guy, and he's shown to be a great player. But, not as many have taken the jump like Brady Tkachuk, and you wouldn't expect them to. I mean, Shabbat, they'll have a few guys. They'll have a few veterans stranded in there, but it's still going to be a weak team because it's still going to take years for them to be good. So, and we don't even know what their goaltending situation will be like. So, maybe they'll get a goalie in one of these deals. I don't know.
I mean, you're starting to see. I mean, because I think that I saw the names of Batherson and Formanton being potentially called up.
Well, Batherson definitely was called up, and
I think Formanton was too. So they're going to start mixing them in, and that's like they get them experience in the second half, and then they're full-fledged Senators next year on top of. And remember, they're going to have a ton of cap space, and they got to get to the cap floor. So you're going to see Dorian probably sign veterans for a little more than they would get someplace else for 1 or 2 years, like they did with Hainsey. Hainsey's making 3.5 this year. He's not a $3.5 million defenseman. But
but they're only going to get guys at the end of their career like a Hainsey because when you go there, you can't win.
Right, but I mean, they're going to get closer to potentially winning as these young players. I mean, I'm just saying they will get veterans who are looking for another year on their contract.
So what are they going to be? How much closer are they going to get, Mike? 6 or 8 points closer than this year?
Yes, but that's not close enough. Right, right, and again, that this is what they signed up for. This is Eugene Melnick's plan. Sign all your young players. I mean, they're probably
not what the fans signed up for, though.
No,
the fans were a bit of a cause, though, because they did drop the attendance. There's no question.
Eugene Melnick, I mean, the way he is operated, it's clear he doesn't care what the fans think.
Right.
So, but the other names, they probably get a decent draft pick for Tyler Ennis because he's on a low salary. Hainsey is at 3.
Give an example because I haven't looked at it in a while. So Ottawa's got 42 points. They're minus 33, right? Even if they get to where Montreal is right now at 51 points, you're still 4 or 5 slots from the playoffs and nowhere.
Right. And this is the thing. Ryan Callahan, his contract drops off at the end of this year. So does Clark MacArthur. That's over.
He's not even working for the NHL Network. That's the funny part about that.
I know, but that's over $10 million in cap space that they have to pay. That they have to because those contracts are not on LTIR. They're on IR, and they're counting against the cap. So that's $10 million that they're going to have to find a way to spend.
Well, they'll extend some of their young guys. That's what they'll do.
They might extend Brady Tkachuk, but
Tkachuk they'll give a big contract too. That'll be a part of it.
But that's not going to count until the following year. So they have to spend.
True.
They have $10 million that they'll have to spend next year. And
they'll get a goalie. They'll spend $5 million on a goalie, probably.
But okay, so let's talk about the Rangers. We mentioned Georgiev. The news didn't sound optimistic regarding the potential for an extension for Kreider over
not at all.
So, I mean, I think that the Rangers, ideally, and this is what's being filtered out there with all these players, even the rentals. We'd love to get somebody who has term on their contract in return. That's not happening because these teams, they're going to hold on. And I keep going back to Toronto because it's the team I know the best, but Toronto is not going to trade a player with term like Kapanen or Janssen or Kerfoot for a rental because they already have 3 rentals on defense, so they're not going to add a 4th. The Rangers would love to get somebody, a young player with term for Chris Kreider, and Kreider might be the most attractive pending free agent out there. But the teams that are wanting to trade for him, like I'll just list 3, St. Louis, Colorado, Boston. They don't want to give up a center. They don't want to give up a young player controllable. They want to give up a first-round pick and a couple prospects. Now, what the Rangers can do is flip that either before the deadline or in the summer to get the players that they're looking for, but they're not going to get that before the deadline.
Well, look, as a good example, there's a loose rumor that, Ken Holland's after Chris Kreider. Okay, let's say Ken Holland is, because Kreider has a year of term and maybe they can get him to want to sign there after he plays with McDavid, possibly. What is he going to give up? Well, I would say they're going to ask for Evan Bouchard, and then they may not give up Bouchard, so then they're going to ask for like Yamamoto and Benson and
Broberg.
All those names are going to come up, and they're going to have to give up probably a combination of those to get them, or a combination with a draft pick to get them. And I don't think Ken Holland's going to trade a number 1 pick. I'm sure of that. So I don't know if Edmonton has enough to be in the game. To be honest,
I don't think they do.
I think he's going to inquire so he could tell his base that he inquired.
Sure.
But I just don't think he's got enough to sit at that table.
No, that's the thing. The Edmonton fan base is frustrated that they have the best player in the league, one of the top 10 players in the league, and it's potentially they could miss the playoffs. And they're 3 points out of falling out of the top 3 in the Pacific and the wild card.
Well, you look at it as 3 points from falling out, and everybody I spoke to in the last 2 weeks,
first place, yeah,
they were like, well, they're in first place, and I'm like, yeah, everybody can be in first place in that division. Like,
yeah, 5 teams within a point of each other. So I'm a glasses half empty guy, so I say they're 3 points out of falling out of playoffs. And based on their flaws, I think that's more likely than them finishing in first place. Okay, so the Rangers, other than Kreider, we've heard.
So here's an interesting one.
Okay.
That I'll float out there. Now, I don't think the Blues would do this at the deadline, but would they do it in June? So what if they can't sign Peter Langelo? Would they trade Peter Angelo for Kreider, knowing that the Rangers can pay Peter Angelo? That I kind of wonder, because that would be a fair deal, but they obviously aren't going to do it right now because they're trying to make a Stanley Cup run. I kind of wonder if that's a June deal.
Could the Rangers sign Peter Angelo, but only after they buy out Stahl?
Oh, but they would buy out Stahl right away, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's a question of whether, obviously the Blues are going to, they're keeping Peter Angelo as an own rental to take their second Stanley Cup run. And then more than likely, and we said at the beginning of the year when they traded for Justin Falk, that was essentially their leverage against Pietrangelo and saying, okay, if you're insistent on taking or asking for $9 million a year, we'll say goodbye. You're going to have to take less to stay. And he's only played there his entire career, but if he has an opportunity to go out and make $9 million and play somewhere else, he very well may.
Yeah, I think there's a better than average chance that he may. But let's say St. Louis is one of those teams for Kreider, and they say, no, you know what? That deal's never going to be possible. would they trade Robert Thomas for Chris Kreider?
It's funny. I brought it up on Buffalo radio this morning because we were talking about the Sabres, and everything goes back with the Sabres to the Ryan O'Reilly deal.
Right.
And the problem is that they thought that Casey Middlestat was capable of filling the number 2 center spot, which is one of the reasons why they felt comfortable enough to trade for Ryan O'Reilly. And the problem is that they could have gotten a lot more from the Blues had they agreed to pay the bonus.
Right.
Ryan O'Reilly's deal. They let St. Louis pay the bonus, and that shot their leverage, and they ended up getting Berglund and Sobotka and Tage Thompson.
And Berglund ended up leaving the team.
Berglund left the team. Sobotka has been a bust and now is hurt. Tage Thompson is out for the season with a shoulder injury. But if they had paid the bonus, they probably could have said, "Okay, we want Robert Thomas or Kyrou or
Kyrou." And that's what the Rangers will talk about too. And they would have to get one of them, I'm sure.
And that's the problem is the Sabres for 2 years have been battling and looking for number 2 centers. And a Buffalo reporter who covers the team said, it's very possible that Marcus Johansson is their number 2 center next year. And that if that's the case, because, Sam Reinhart is not a center, but he played center in junior. He's not going to move to number 2 center. They have are they going to put
He's going to be on the team?
Well, he's an RFA, so they're going to have to make a decision.
Well, they could trade him too.
They could trade him because he's probably going to ask for $7 to $8 million.
Yeah.
Sticking with the Sabres there. I just wrote about this yesterday. You have Girgensons, you have Larson, you have Connor Sheary, you have Zach Bogosian, who's requested a trade. You have Evan Rodriguez, who's requested a trade. None of them are really sexy. I think the best return you're going to get is for Sheary, and I keep putting him with Pittsburgh because
I think there's other teams though. I'm not sure.
There might be. I'm just saying It makes the most sense. Pittsburgh. They know him.
Mm-hmm.
They can fit him under the cap because he makes half of what Gensel made, and if they trade for Sheary as a pull plug for Gensel, they have more money to add someplace else for the rest of the season because Gensel will be out at least the end of the regular season, and probably they go shopping for a rental. But yeah, he could go someplace else. He won 2 Stanley Cups. I'm sure the Sabres probably could get a 2nd or 3rd round pick for Sheary.
Sabres are still a team in transition, and I'm not sure next year is going to be all that much better. I think it could be improved. I don't know if it's going to be playoff improved. Right now, it doesn't look like it's possible.
Well, the only way they get that number 2 center that they keep talking about is by trading Ristolainen.
Yeah, and then they weaken their defense to the point where they possibly are worse than they are now.
Yeah, but they have more defensive depth than they do forward depth. That's the problem.
Yeah, but it's not proven NHL defensive depth.
Montour and McCabe, and
Montour has actually not been great defensive for them.
No, he hasn't.
That's another issue. He's a name now. He was better in the Anaheim system. He's not been as good there, maybe because it's who he's partnered with. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I just don't think you could weaken their defense just to make that trade. I think you have to strengthen the defense, and if you have to deal with – look, the Rangers got to the playoffs with Derek Stepan as the number 1 center. They got to the Stanley Cup that way. It is possible, but you have to strengthen everything else around it. I think the Sabres should just concentrate on that. And maybe when you're trading Reinhart, you do trade him for a defenseman that another team doesn't seem to be willing to sign or can't sign. Maybe that's where you go RFA for RFA.
But this is the issue with the Sabres. Look at the Atlantic Division and look at the 4 teams that are ahead of them. Boston has Bergeron and Krejci.
Right.
Tampa has Stamkos and Tyler Johnson. Toronto has Tavares and Matthews. Florida has Barkov and Trocheck. The Sabres have Eichel and not much. And that's
Middlestat is presumably that guy at some point.
I'm saying right now. Now they're Marcus Johansson, who's a converted winger. They don't have an answer at second line center, and the teams behind them, Montreal, Detroit, and Ottawa, don't have the answers either. So it's.
But I think you could survive that way if everything else is good.
You'd have to be better at the other positions than those other teams, and they're not. They're actually weak on the wings.
Well, it depends what they do in off season. It depends who comes up. It depends on who develops. But again, talking about all those things, is their goaltending even taken care of? We don't know.
Yeah,
all pretty good.
Yeah, Rob in the chat points out that it's Stamkos. We'll see, Stamkos sometimes plays the wing. Point sometimes plays the wing. Right. I'm using just the overall general. Like, yeah, you could say Stamkos and Point. You could say Stamkos, or you could say Point and Tyler Johnson. So it's a mix and match. Okay, Montreal. I think they're going. Wrote about it today. I think they're going to sell Kovalchuk, and it makes a ton of sense. They'll get a return for somebody who is a, why not signing, and there you go. Nate Thompson's a fourth liner.
Nate Thompson's not getting you much.
Yeah, Marco Scandella is hurt now, so that's Other than that, it's you've heard Jeff Petry's name being mentioned, and like I said, I don't think they're going to trade Jeff Petry because they have trouble getting people signed, and Petry's got another year, so why not wait?
Yeah, they'll do some things. It won't be big. Nothing's big in Montreal anymore. The trades aren't big. The team's output isn't big. Like, they've just become like a middle market team, even though they used to be the vaunted, Montreal Canadiens. But in the cap era, they're like everybody else.
The only thing that's big is Carey Price's salary. Toronto, I
do have breaking news.
Go ahead.
And this will anger some people. But Jim Bowden is saying there's a growing belief amongst NL GMs that the DH will be instituted for the NL as early as 2021. Watch out. If you want to talk about grumpy guys on this show, watch out, man.
That will piss a lot of people off. The traditionalists will be pissed. But we still haven't heard about the minor leagues thing.
No, that has just gone nowhere. Maybe they've backed off it for now.
Maybe they backed off for a year because of the hubbub about Houston.
Yeah. I don't feel like they backed off because the season's going to start in a couple months.
I don't think they thought that story was going to have as much legs as it did. Now,
it's senators fighting against it because it doesn't impact cities. So I do think they got him to back off for now.
Flyer fan 16 is like, Toronto was already covered with the West, Mike. Too bad, we're covering them again. They don't have a lot of cap room, so they would probably have to trade a guy like a Cody Ceci to clear space, and I don't see that happening because they actually need Cody Ceci right now.
Yeah, they do need him.
Yeah, so I think that more than likely they're going to trade for a backup goaltender if they can get one cheaply.
Hutchinson goes in that swap, though.
Right, exactly. The other team takes Hutchinson, and they get another goalie, and they give up a prospect or a draft pick.
Right.
I could see that.
I should point out that in the AHL All-Star Game, during the skills, there's a good video of Jeremy Bracco skating there. All the haters that say, well, he's not that fast a skater, but forget how good his edge work is. You can see when he's going around the cones how good his edge work is and why I don't know if he won the finals or just that particular heat, but you could see why he won that heat, and it's because of the edge work.
Yeah, and it's ironic that the two most criticized prospects in the Leaf organization, and I think they're criticized because teams want to knock down their value so they can get them cheaper, are Liljegren and Bracco, and both of them were named to the AHL All-Star team. So, but I think that they'll make a minor, like a depth add on defense and maybe a backup goaltender, but all this both Elliot Friedman and Bob McKenzie came out last week and said that basically the same thing, which to my interpretation is they got it from someone in the Leaf organization. They are not trading Kapanen, Janssen, or Kerfoot unless they get a defenseman at around the same age with some term left on the contract. They have two gaping holes on the right side of their defense for next year. And if you think they're going to give up, a Kapanen for a TJ Brody, who's a rental, or a Brendan Dillon, who's a rental, they're not doing it. So I
think I saw on Instagram, Dion Phaneuf put his skates in his car and said, "Off to Toronto." No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, of course. Again, similar to Philadelphia. I think Gostisbehere will not be on the Flyers next year, but I don't know whether the fit is there before the 24th of February to move him.
It's going to be hard now coming off of surgery.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I think it'll be important for him to get back in the lineup before the end of the year to prove everybody he's healthy.
Right.
Now, I won't, I know Eck reported in his blog today about Ryan Getzlaf. I honestly don't see it, Russ. It says, he said he's heard about the Oilers and Flyers both having interest in Getzlaf. Getzlaf's got a no move.
He's not going anywhere.
He's in Southern California. He's making over $8 million.
I mean, besides those facts, anytime I ever see Getzlaf in the locker room in a game that I cover, or I remember seeing him in an All-Star or everything else, he likes representing that team. I really don't think he's going anywhere. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's not going anywhere.
Right. I agree. The other thing that he mentioned was Kovalchuk. Canadians are expecting Duran and Gallagher back this week. Where that leads will determine if Kovalchuk stays or moves on. I don't believe he's staying because, again, the Canadians are not in this race. The Canadians are at 51 points. They're 10 points behind wild card. They're 10 points behind third place. They're not in this race. I mean, Buffalo is tied with them, but Buffalo has 9 of their next 10 games at home. And I think they're done. I think they're sellers, but they at least probably have to wait a little time before they decide to become sellers, because if they win 5 or 6 games at home in a row, then they're maybe back in the race. All right, let's just take a couple questions here. Let's see here.
Oh, it's Funky Cold Zadina.
No, not yet. I'm going in order here.
Mm-hmm.
Randy Terrell, what rentals are the Avs going to pick up with all that cap space? I think I think they'd be in on Kreider. Remember, they were in on
Kreider's one.
Pajot.
Pajot could be the other.
Because Pajot can play wing and center. He can pass the ball. See, the thing is, they have the cap flexibility in the room under the cap to add multiple players. I don't think they want to give up any of their big prospects, but they're not going to give up Bowen Byram. They're probably not going to give up Alex Newhook, but they're, if they can get, if they can trade second round picks and get rentals that help them, like if they can get Pajot for something like that, maybe
they go Palmieri. I mean, it's possible.
Well, that would be for more than 1 year, sure. I mean, if they're that's the thing. Are they willing to pay a higher price for somebody who's not just a rental, but somebody that could be there for multiple years? I don't know. Let's see here. Where's I saw Esmir had one. 1 second. There we go. Esmir says New Jersey trades Domingue and Severson to Toronto for some picks and prospects. That can't happen.
It can't happen. Severson makes too much.
Yeah, and that's the only way that happens is if the Leafs include CC in the deal, or the Devils. Even if the Devils were
Severson, I think, has terms still.
Right. Yeah, he's got 3 years at 4.1.
So they would have to do that. Would have to be for Kapanen.
Yeah, but.
Severson's a very good defenseman. Let me tell you, I believe the Devils have really misused him, because you got to remember, he actually is good on the power play too. But once they got Vatanen and they put Jack Hughes in there, he started getting moved around again. But there was a time where Severson's points just this year were rising again. So I think if you put him in the right situation, he can be better.
Well, here's the problem: Andy Green is probably retiring.
Yeah.
At the end of this year, Vatanen is a UFA, and if they can't get him signed, he's gone.
Well, what if they get him signed? They trade Severson.
Well, maybe, but I mean, I'm only dealing with the here and now. It's like Severson signed up for 3 more years, and Vatanen is a UFA. I would think Vatanen is going to go to market, at least see what's out there.
Yeah.
And based on what defensemen usually get, I'm sure he's.
I mean, last year he had 39 points, and then this year he's back to playing a different role, and he's not getting the points.
And more than likely, if the rumors are true about Subban wanting out, then you have to consider that. I think they keep Severson because him and Butcher are, they're young, and I don't see a reason why to trade them.
Well, I don't know. He is from Canada. There's a couple of different places. I guess he grew up in Brandon, but then he might be from Melville. I don't know, but he may be a good fit, actually, if there's a way of working that out. That would be the Leafs looking down the road and getting a guy with term, like you've said. It's not impossible.
Right. Mike Green to Toronto. It says Michael.
No way.
Reason, no chance.
0 chance. Now, Mike Green, could he go to Calgary? Maybe.
Washington.
I don't know if Washington has room for him, though, anymore.
Yeah, maybe not. They'd have to trade like a Richard Panik to.
Could he go to the Islanders? Yeah.
Yeah. El Guapo, with so many teams up against the cap, do you think that there will be more 3-team trades with one of those teams taking on salary? I think that's possible. I also think that
I think there'll be one. I think you'll see one. Not like a 3-way deal, but like that way that other trade happened a few weeks ago.
I call them depository teams. That's Chicago, if they drop out of the race, they have $11 million in cap space.
When they do.
Right, when they do. Buffalo, when they trade their players, they open up cap space. They could take other players on. There are teams like that. New Jersey could take advantage of it because New Jersey needs as many assets as they can get. Let's see here. A couple more, and then we'll end the show. Drew says, who the F can afford Subban? Well, again, that will require – Russ and I at the draft in Vancouver last June, when Subban's name was being bandied about, we didn't hear about New Jersey. We heard Toronto and a few other teams.
Right.
And it was conditional on Nashville retaining salary, which they didn't want to do. The thing that they were most motivated to do was get rid of $9 million in salary with Subban, even at the cost of taking a lesser deal, which they did with Santini and a draft pick.
Right.
So dumped Subban's contract with 3 years left. New Jersey is not a cap team. If Subban wants out of there, they're going to probably have to eat, I'd say, $3 million of that salary for the last 2 years. And New Jersey might be willing to do that because they're going to be struggling to get to the cap floor. So it actually would help them in a way.
You have breaking news.
Go ahead.
Looks like Las Vegas is going to get an AHL franchise. They finally are going to do that. So that's good.
So they're going to play in the same arena, I would assume.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, because they don't have an NBA team right now, so they have a lot of open dates, so they could accommodate that. Jody 4276, Athanasiou and Trevor Daley for Kiefer Bellows and Bodie Wild. Dream the impossible dream. I don't think that's a deal.
Athanasiou for Bellows and Bodie Wild. I would not make that deal. I mean, why am I making that deal if I'm the Islanders? I'm not going to pass the first round even if I get Athanasiou. I mean, I probably will, but I don't think I'm getting past the second. Why am I trading 2 pretty good prospects? I know, and Bellows is having a good year. And Bodie Wild, there's a lot there. He may not be a superstar defenseman. I'm not making that deal.
And remember,
he's going to play like 5 games.
Right. And remember who Athanasiou's agent is.
Right.
The same.
We're not re-signing him.
Yeah. Do you think Lou wants to go to battle with the same agent that Mitch Marner?
No.
Josh Anderson? No. So, all right. Good show. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. There are some games tonight. I believe it's 5 or 6. Let me just double check the schedule. 1, 2.
Canadians, Devils, Sens, Maple Leafs, Preds,
6 games.
Lightning, Stars, Blues, Canucks, Ducks, Sharks.
Lightning Stars is probably the best game. Obviously, I'll be
I
watching.
don't know. I think Blues, Canucks will be real good.
Yeah. Leafs play in Nashville. Nashville's been struggling. Leafs have been struggling.
That's a
So
loss for the Leafs.
well,
I'm telling you why. Because they've been in Nashville, enjoying Nashville. That's a loss.
maybe we'll see. Hot chicken tends to motivate certain parts of the body. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Jello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.